wear a mask. Can we just wear a mask?
You can wear a mask. You do whatever you want, man.
I don't have any masks.
All right, so we are now recording. Can you guys all see the Humboldt Homebrewers monthly club meeting slideshow?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Cool. All right. I'm just making sure of that before we get rolling. There's the agenda that we're going to be covering today. I'll be forwarding through the slides, which will cover each of those agenda items. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you. Sorry I couldn't be at the last meeting. Life is crazy, super crazy, but we're pulling it off. We're pulling it off. All right, so to get started, the new digital meeting format, this is probably going to be, I don't want to say permanent, but for the foreseeable future, we're going to be meeting digitally for quite a while. I will have a standing meeting ID for this so that we can reuse the same meeting URL every month. I'm hoping. I'll make sure and get that ironed out before the next email goes out. Everything is going to be put out there way ahead of time, not like this week. I mean, not like this month or last month. So it'll be out, posted publicly on our website. I'm kind of hesitant to put the link on our website only because it's kind of spam fodder. I'll talk to Sean to get his opinion on it. I was hoping he'd be here, but oh well, he's not here.
He said he won't be joining.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, okay.
Let me just check Facebook really quick, just to be sure that I'm not like getting anything from anyone saying, "Where are you? I can't get in." Okay, cool. We're good. All right.
We're already getting bombed by a cat, so.
Are you recording that cat fight? Have you got that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's
So yep, we're digital.
Not pornographic.
We're digital. It's a thing now. I purchased a Zoom account. It's only $15 a month. Usually at a club meeting, we're spending upwards of like $20 to $40 a month just on gathering. So I think that this is a justified spending for the club for $15 a month to have a Zoom account that, you know, we can all have access to. The login for that is the same as our email account, just for officers, FYI. Please message me offline. I mean, you know, message me if you still need a password for that. And I'll post that into the officers page as well. So Zoom is our home for now. Yeah, that's pretty much that. Commercial calibration, instead of sharing homebrew, is going to be our MO for now, you know, until we figure out a safe way to share homebrew and stuff like that, which is kind of going to be on everyone's own terms. I'm not going to say, hey, there's going to be a big portion of our homebrew club meeting that's going to be focusing on sharing homebrew. I don't think that's wise or safe of us. We talked about it at the officers meeting, and we don't really see a way to do that safely for now. So largely, we're going to be doing commercial calibration as tastings, and we're going to be building our palettes and our lexicon to give our taste buds a workout instead of just saying, oh, we're drinking a beer, you know, we're drinking a beer, we're not just a sipping club kind of thing. So we still want it to be educational. I'm hoping that the coming months we can do a local spotlight for our local breweries or cideries or kombucheries, whatever you want to call it. I'd really like to bring in some local speakers, specifically brewers, or, you know, someone who works in the warehouse and stuff like that. We are working on that already for next month. We thought we had something this month. Oh well, it got canceled. So local is going to be the name of the game for commercial calibration next month, for sure. Whether that is Mad River, because they've got a lot of cool things going on. They're really developing their pilot system and pilot batches that they're coming out with. Redwood Curtain, great. They've been doing everything. But in terms of a lot of our local breweries, they're only doing crowlers of their limited releases for the most part. So it's kind of a steep buy-in in that you either have to come home with a crowler or, you know, go and drink a pint at the tap house, which doesn't really work for a lot of people. So just be expecting that announcement in the coming weeks for which commercial calibration we're going to be doing next month. I'm hoping we can get that out in about 2 weeks. Yeah, so that's where we're kind of headed. In terms of homebrew highlight, I would love to have a pre-recorded little video or have a homebrewer on here who's willing to, kind of be interviewed so that we can record it and post it on our Facebook page or our website so people can, put a face to our club and get to know some of the homebrewers who've been brewing for quite a while and have their own unique style. I think every homebrewer has their own unique style. I don't think that anyone is like, oh yeah, you're a homebrewer, you're just the same old. There's no two homebrewers that do anything the same. Yeah, that's the homebrew highlight. Okay, so this is the big piece of business that I would like to cover this year. Nice, Ben. Our membership year change. So just to give people a heads up, our membership year typically ends the end of August, so that September is the first month of the membership year. Is that correct, Matt? Mr. Membership Director?
Sounds right.
Okay, cool. So our membership year beforehand, I don't know why it was that month or, for what reason, but there are a few aspects that are kind of in conflict with that time of month or that time of year right now, specifically the insurance premium. So we got an email to the club email about our insurance being due. So this protects us for liability if we are outpouring or, someone wants to sue one of us for trying to share a homebrew with them and they get sick and they want to sue you for medical bills. This is liability insurance that anyone who is a member of the club gets. I highly recommend that anyone who is a member, got to be aware of it. And I think it's something that we need to do better about sharing with our members is that if you're a member, you get this insurance. Granted, it only costs the club $4.50 a person. It's super cheap for the amount of insurance that you actually get, so you don't really have to worry about pouring a beer for someone. As long as they're of legal age, because if they're not, that's your own ass.
As
So
someone who deals with insurance for their work on a daily basis, that is super awesome, and that's really valuable as a member from my point of view.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I think it's a huge benefit for us. So at $4.50 a person, the more members that we have aware of it, they have that value of why am I part of the homebrew club? Well, you get this insurance just for signing up. But with that being said, the insurance premium, they asked for us to send them a roster of our club membership by the end of July. So in order for us to cover more members afterwards, we have to be paying, or we have to let them know that we have new members, and we also have to send them an additional payment of $4.50 per person. Just that amount of administrative time is really kind of taxing for us. And honestly, as of last year when it came around, we just threw them the membership of the highest membership we had from Homebrew Fest, because Homebrew Fest, Gabe said, hey, if you want to pour, you got to be a member of the club, to get insurance. So a bunch of people joined, and we had the highest membership number we've had in a long time. And that's what we threw to the insurance company last year. I think since we turned that roster in, we only had 3 new members since then. So it's not like we went back and got them covered. But that is something that I'd really like to be more on top of, because it is a huge benefit. So insurance premiums are due at the end of July. It would be really nice if not the premium, the roster is due at the end of July. Usually the premium is due by the end of August. So I would really like to move our membership year to coincide with that so that it doesn't require more administrative time. Also, with our new digital membership payments through the Ink People's website, they don't have a way to directly automatically send us a donation acknowledgement. So basically the way that we have it now, anytime anyone signs up as a member, it's technically a donation that gets sent to the ink people and it gets earmarked for us. So they have to go through and mark anything that's homebrewers, put it in an email and email it to us. So most of the time that takes at least a week for us to even get acknowledgement that someone signed up digitally. So if we were to change the membership year to be a month earlier than voting, theoretically, we would have acknowledgement of all of the members by the time that we vote for officers. So I'm hoping that we can have a verbal, vote of the people who are here to either yay or nay this, just because granted, I don't know that we need a vote, but I do want people to acknowledge that it is a thing that we want to do and it's for good reason. It's not just, hey, we want to cut a month off of the membership year and put people out $2. Like it's $25 a year that people pay divided by 12 months. It's about $2 a month. So if there are any hardships that people, can't deal with, the club will respond to that. We'll probably just prorate them a month. If people do have, concerns about it, we'll prorate them a month. Not a big deal. So if you guys can unmute yourself for a yay or nay vote. So I would like to hear people's votes to propose. So I propose to change the membership year that is currently ending in September. Wait, let me double check this so I can make sure that it's official. Sorry, I'm ill prepared for this one little thing. Okay, membership is currently due, or it starts in September. So August is the last month of membership. So what I'm proposing is to start in August. Okay, so all those in favor of shifting our membership year to start in August rather than September in order to accommodate insurance and digital membership payments before officer voting. All those in favor say aye.
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 Hey.
Hi.
Okay, all those opposed say nay. All right, please let the record show it was unanimous of attending members. Thank you, I appreciate that. Do any of you guys have concerns or opinions of this whole thing?
I will freely donate that extra $2, no problem.
Yeah, that's kind of my feeling about it, but I do also want it to, want people to know, like, if that is a hardship, please let us know. Like, we will prorate your membership for the next year. I mean, for the following membership year. But it is going to make it a lot easier for us to vote.
To be clear, that's a one-time loss, correct?
It's a one-time loss. Yeah. So we are going to change our wording and all of our documentation to, instead of starting in September like we usually do, we will start our membership year in August while keeping the officers voting the same, because the officers voting is mentioned in the bylaws and the Constitution, whereas the membership year is not.
One concern that I have regarding changing it from September to August is that during August, a lot of people are out of town. So, September is kind of the traditional start to the school year, which means there's more people in the area and available to do these things. So that should just at least be a consideration.
Yeah, and I had especially thought about that for college students that were, are usually gone for the summer and then come back to start. But what I was kind of visualizing or, theorizing is that if people do come, most of the time the school year starts like the second week of August, so I'm hoping that we can do like a membership drive kind of thing in August, where we push people to like, hey, reach out to any friends you know who are interested in homebrewing to get enrolled. But I honestly think that people who do come back from being gone during that time, if they want to vote during the September meeting, they could just show us their email receipt, you know, or, I mean, really it's about voting for me, you know, voting for officers and having the membership list instead of, oh yeah, I guess you're a member, you know, kind of, we haven't seen the membership agreement, you know. So that's kind of the what I was thinking. But yeah, I agree. So students are kind of a concern, but the greater good.
Doing it all digital, that means people have the whole month of August to join up.
Yeah, exactly. So they have an entire month.
A bit helpful.
Yeah, and I think we'll just have to be on the communication about that, right? Like,
yeah, and we'll start
communicating
pushing that in the next email and posting it on Facebook and hiring a smoke signal maker and skywriter probably. All right, we're done with that. Let's see. Officer nominations. So that brings us into the next phase of business here. We have officers who no longer want to be part of the officer corps. Secretary and PR are going to be open. So anyone who wants to get involved in this capacity or any capacity, I guess I'm preaching to the frickin' choir here, except for, you know, since we're all pretty much officers here, except for Mike and Anna, who was previous officer, you know, so let that be known. We have.
I'll just put it out there that I'm a terrible person for PR.
Yeah, and honestly, if PR doesn't get filled, I'll just consume that position myself, you know.
If it doesn't get filled, I won't ditch you.
If it doesn't get filled.
Yeah, I won't ditch out if it doesn't get filled.
Thanks, Beth. I appreciate that. I really, really do. I mean, I hope I haven't been too demanding of you recently.
No, well, I just think things about, you know.
Yeah, I know. All right, so officer nominations. If anyone has officer nominations, please shoot them my way. Please ask someone who may be interested if they are okay with a nomination. I will be putting this out on Facebook as well and our website. I was really freaking hoping Sean would be here tonight so I could hand him a to-do list. Yeah, anyway.
Just email him that stuff, man. He'll take care of it.
I sent him an email and I got not even a confirmation from him.
Text him then. Text him.
Yeah.
Say, dude, I sent you an email. It's the equivalent of walking over to his desk and saying, hey, I just sent you an email about such and such. Did you get that? Did you read that yet?
Oh, I hate that shit. Okay, so I'll get in touch with Sean.
I've called someone, Skyped somebody, and emailed somebody for work, all in the span of 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it's all right. Okay, maybe that's mine.
Did you woof him? That's an Office reference.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, crap, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, officer nominations. We need officers. I mean, it'd be nice. But I mean, to be honest, we need them.
Do we need them?
We need them. All right. Hey, look, we're on to the fun part now. I'm going to leave my computer for a minute and go grab a cold beer. I encourage everyone to go grab your frothy embrace if you have it.
Brought my cooler with me to my living room.
I brought a cooler.
Jeez, you guys are so freaking prepared. Well, I will be the one slacking. Even Matt, fuck. Shit. Okay, I'll be right back.
I don't have
Sorry,
a frothy
guys.
embrace though, unfortunately.
I
Recorded,
expected
remember.
more, President.
Is this
I'm the only one who did not get.
Just to ask, is this the first time a cat's been at one of the Humboldt Homebrewer meetings? I feel like it is. Anyway.
I gotta say, first off, that is a beautiful can. With the
It is gorgeous.
Yeah, the whole like the way the color pattern, the color fades from one to the other.
Charlie.
Am I the only one with one?
Come here. Agree.
Oh, do we got another kitty here? Hell yeah. I want to see this cat.
Come here. Come here.
Yeah, Pete, show us
Is
this
my cat
can.
drinking beer?
This is such a sweet can.
Charlie, come here.
Yeah, it really is an awesome can.
Come here.
Like that whole color fade is really well done.
Yeah. I'm just always impressed by the labeling that's been coming out these days. I mean, in the last like 2 years, maybe. Shocked.
You want to see my cat drink beer?
Shut your cat drinks beer.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, that's so weird.
Wait, Chrissy, this isn't the cat with kidney issues, right?
No,
Just kidding.
not yet. He is now.
My aunt and uncle had a dog that drinks beer, and it would actually like sneak around and find beer that was on the ground, knock it over on purpose, and drink it.
That's
Oh my
amazing.
God.
My dog will climb up on the side table or any table where there's a beer in a pint glass and lap beer out of the glass. She will also steal an empty can and turn it over and try to lap all the beer out of it.
That's crazy.
It's super annoying.
So can you guys see, are you seeing the Frothy Embrace image?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I just think it's so freaking neat.
It's gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
So what are you guys smelling in this thing?
Oh, that's complicated.
Picture?
Well, I mean, no,
Yeah,
like what, not, you're just throwing things.
Beer?
Throwing hops out there.
Well, beer.
No, I mean, like what aromas do you smell?
Hops.
I smell like guava.
I smell like a
Like-
citrusy forward.
Like
hop.
definitely tropical fruit. Like yeah. guava,
Super
pineapple.
tropical.
Yeah.
Maybe
Very
pineapple.
IPA.
Yeah, it definitely has a strong. There's definitely some sort of like skunky hop in there for sure.
You're really selling it.
Glad. I'm sorry, I'm missing it.
Oh, it's okay. If you look over on the shared screen, here's
Yeah.
the explanation or what they bill it as: bright flavors of passion fruit, tangerine, and coconut. I don't know about the coconut, but
I
it
don't know
is-
if coconut or passion fruit there, but okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like suntan lotion.
Feel the froth.
Oh, actually, on the taste, I do perceive a little bit of almost coconut back on there. It's not in the smell though. It's only in the tongue.
Well, Ben, if it makes you feel any better, I'm drinking passion fruit cider, so
There you go.
I'm not sharing other than in the smell.
Did you get any of these nuts?
I don't like these nuts.
Oh,
I'm not a fan.
What
Not
are you
a fan.
referring to?
The
My
Humboldt
cider.
Homebrewers.
Okay, good, because I had no idea what you're referring to.
Although we don't like the honey one either, but if you mix the honey and the nut, it actually becomes palatable.
Yeah,
So
it's like a honey
Thanks.
roasted nut thing.
It's like these honey nuts.
yeah, exactly.
No, I got blurberry, passion fruit, and friends with benefits.
Mm.
It's a cider, Chris.
I know,
Berries
I know,
intense.
I got that. But I mean, I'm hoping that we'll do a cider tasting in the future. I'm hoping that we can get someone from the cider company to talk about it.
I
That would be
mean,
great.
I hope. You know, I really want to bring some local brewers or producers on here to talk. If not, then I'm hoping, you know, we could do a pre-recorded, like, you know, 5 minute, 10 minute.
I
little-
bet if Jamie wasn't into it, we could get Darren to do it. But I'm sure Jamie or Darren would do it.
Last month, Jamie said he was working. I asked Jamie if he could be in on talking about the history of the club, but he was working last month.
You know, I gotta say that this label is beautiful, but the whole label is very lacking in information about the beer.
Most
Right.
labels these days are, which is why I pulled up their webpage. Almost anytime I'm in a beer aisle, I have my phone in my hand and I feel kind of bad about it because I'm like blocking the aisle and staring at my phone. But, you know, I know some of the hops that I don't like. I know for a fact I don't like specific hops. So if it's like a hoppy IPA, I want to make sure, you know, it doesn't have the hop that I don't like. But
What were you going to say, Anna?
Yeah, that when I was looking at the can at Eureka Natural Foods, I didn't see any information. So then I went to the Facebook page and I was looking for like more information about it. So it kind of sucks because I love IPAs and it's hard to just get a can that looks pretty and there is no information. I mean, I will buy it, but because it's pretty, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like homebrewers are really discerning about wanting to know what's in the beer. I can't tell you how many times I've flagged down a server or like asked a bartender, like, so what's in this? And they're like, I don't know. You guys need some education, apparently. So these Sabro hops, has anyone brewed with Sabro hops? Kenny? I think. Maybe? I don't know.
No, I have not.
So Sabro, I think, is one of the more recent hops to be, patented. Apparently it's an area in Denmark. But there was a big push by Yakima Chief to, commercialize them and get them out there. But it's really cool because, are you kidding me? Under maintenance, unacceptable. Anyway, they have Neo-Mexicanus heritage, so they're kind of like a wild variety of hops. Let's see. All right, by the numbers. Does any of this make sense to anyone? Just out of curiosity, have you guys done a deep dive into hop oils like I have?
Not really.
No? Okay, maybe that'll be my my science quick tip next month. So Dustin, who was with the Homebrew Club and then moved to Portland, sucker. I hope he's throwing Molotovs right now. The book written by Scott Janish, the new IPA, I think is what it's called, goes into hop acids and oils. And it is so well written. If anyone is interested in hop, science and current learning on it, I'd recommend reading that book. But I'll talk about that next meeting. So Sabro, interesting because some people say that Sabro tastes like strawberries, Anyway, that was my little blurb about it. How are you guys liking this beer?
It's great.
Yeah, beer. I love beer.
Yeah, it's really tropical. I feel like it would go great with a slice of pizza.
Too hoppy for a pizza.
Everything goes great with pizza, though.
So what kind of taste does the Kveik kind of impart, or does it?
So the Kveik yeast, I mean, it's kind of a,
Yeah.
The pronunciation is split. So some people say Kveik, some people say Kveik. One's more traditional. I don't know which one. I say Kveik because it sounds funny.
That sounds.
That's what I read online is Kveik.
Yeah, Kveik. I would like to hear from Kenny after I'm done here, just with a quick little blip, because Kenny brewed a beer with the Kveik yeast, and I brewed with Kveik yeast. But my experience with the Kveik yeast is that it has like overwhelming pineapple, tropical fruit notes to it. Even if you don't use a lot of hops, like overwhelming esters, it is phenomenal. And so some of the berry, like pineapple-y, guava undertones that you're smelling and tasting is super easily achievable with the Kveik yeast. Kenny, would you mind talking about your experience with it?
I've only brewed with it once, and that was last year. That was the Imperial Kveiking. I was corrected by a vendor that it's pronounced Kveik, but I've heard it pronounced Kveik, Kveik, Kveik. It's pronounced however you're going to pronounce it. But yeah, there's several different strains, and they're all regional. There's Voss, Hornedal, Oslo. They all have slight bit different profiles. I'm not as familiar with brewing with Kveik yeasts. I have access to at least one strain from Lalamand. That's their newest Voss Kveik dry yeast format. I know Imperial has a couple of different ones. Their Kveiking, which is a seasonal last year, is actually now on their main menu. I know somebody that's trying to source it for local home brewers. There's also, what is it? Omega has several different ones. I think their most popular ones are the Oslo, Hornedal, and Voss as well. If you look onto, if you Google Kveik yeasts, there's a gentleman named Lars, I can't remember his last name, but he's got this blog called Lars Blog, and he goes through all the different Norwegian Kveik yeasts that are available, and he's trying to catalog every single one. They all come from different farmhouses in Norway, so everyone's got a little unique profile to it. And traditionally what they would do is they would carve a wooden ring with multiple facets, and dunk the wood ring into brew at high Krausen to capture the yeast. And they would dry it out, and that's how they would save the yeast for future use. So it's a really cool process. I'm still learning about it myself. I just haven't had to do a lot of time to do research on it. So
Awesome. Thank you, Kenny. Yeah, so Kveik yeast, super versatile, super tropical so I've used two different yeast strains, two different strains of the Kveik yeast. The Kveik King from Imperial, which Kenny had, was, oh man, it was a beast. And then I've also used it was Bootleg Biology Kveik blend, phenomenal yeast. I'll talk a little bit about that. And just
cool
a
thing
moment.
about Kveik yeasts is that you know, a lot of them, they're very fast fermenting. They can handle high temperatures. They really like that kind of upper 80s, 90s Fahrenheit temperature range. They ferment very fast with no off flavors. So in commercial aspects, it's really popular right now because a commercial brewery can turn a brew around in, you know, less than a week, which for production wise is absolutely phenomenal. I do know that they're super active right off the get-go within an hour or two of pitching. And if y'all are gonna experiment with them, use a blow-off tube.
Yeah.
Always good advice.
Oh, yeah. So that segues into our science quick dip for today. So like Kenny had mentioned, it's largely a Norwegian strain of yeast passed down from generation to generation, largely through families. Lars blog is one of the foremost resources for information out there regarding heritage styles and the different strains of yeast. So this guy basically traveled all over the place and collected samples of every family that would let him into their house, into their brewery, collected a sample of their yeast and ran it through genetic testing. Super interesting if you're into that beer nerdery. And there are still new strains that are being identified to this day. This guy's in his 60s and he's just traveling, drinking beer. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's so-so. His own words. So the Kveik yeast started so fast when I used it the first time, and it was like a 6-month-old packet that I used. I kept it in my fridge for so long, and I just kept meaning to use it, way past its typical viability date. Didn't do a starter, just tossed it right in. That thing showed activity within 2 hours of pitching. It was insane. At this point, I've done a high high temperature fermentation, a low temperature fermentation, and then an in the middle fermentation. And this thing just rockets through beer in any temperature range. It's a little slower down in the 60s. I haven't tried it in the 50s yet. I don't know how well it'll do in the longer temps. And I don't know if I want to experiment with it that way. But largely, it is such a beast. And if you don't have temperature control in your house right now, or in your garage or wherever you ferment, I highly recommend trying this yeast. Largely because it's also recommended by Lars, not necessarily the yeast producers, to underpitch. So underpitching for us homebrewers, instead of, you know, doing a starter, just out of curiosity, who actually does a starter? I don't do starters. Anyone?
Sometimes. Depends on the beer.
A yeast starter? Oh, sometimes. Oh, man. No, I'm kidding.
Only time I've done a starter is when I have old yeast I've saved and it's, you know, like a couple months old.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
Yeah.
usually do a starter if I'm using a liquid yeast, which I don't often do because I'm a cheap asshole and I hate making starters. But if I'm making a beer
Me
that's
too.
over, you know, 1060, I'll make a starter for sure for that.
I've never made a starter. It seems like work.
We've never
Right.
made a starter, but we generally use our harvested yeast, and we're generally over pitching.
Yeah, I'd say most people, if they have fresh yeast and their beer is under 1.06 or 1.058, most people are over pitching, which is probably it's cheap assurance, you know, that your beer is going to take off. But for Kveik yeast, it's actually recommended to underpitch. So when this package I had that was 6 months old, you know, viability, I don't remember I looked up a calculator. For a typical yeast, it drops in viability. I think I'm not even going to try to come up with a number. You can Google it.
5 to 10%
But
roughly.
yeah, 5 to 10% per month.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you have an old pack and you do have a strong beer, you should be making a starter. Anyway, Kveik, underpitch it. Doesn't matter if it's hot. This shit will rocket through your beer. I've done it using light beers. I've done an IPA. I've done a stout. I did an imperial stout with it. I did a blonde with it. I also did a pale ale. What was the other one? I did a saison. I can't really call it a saison. It's more of a blonde because it didn't have saison yeast in it that I did with Kveik. It was phenomenal. My wife was like, you need to keep making this one. And yeah, so anyway, I pitched it hot every time, or except for 2 of them, I left it low. I mean, sorry. Crazy, we'll get to you in just a sec. I pitched it hot, which is like in the 80s, the high 80s, I pitched it. Most of the time, I only did it once where I cooled it all the way down to like 65, which is typical beer pitching temperatures. So pitching it hot works for me every time. I haven't had any weird phenolic off flavors, which is something that some people say for some of their Kveik yeast. You know, yes, Chrissy, you have a question.
Are there negatives to it blowing through beer quickly? Do you ever
Well,
want it to take longer?
typically with most yeast strains in general, if the yeast will consume through the beer fast, usually that means that it's not cleaning up as well, so that you'll have off flavors. Off flavors are pretty typical if your beer ferments too fast. You know, if it's too hot and it ferments too fast, the yeast colony won't clean up because it multiplied so fast. So, I mean, so early on that by the time it's done consuming all of its food, there's still a giant colony. So then it's that giant colony which can likely, you know, lead to off flavors. Some people will tout that autolysis, which is where your yeast will start to consume itself because it doesn't have other things to eat, is a really common off flavor. In my experience, it's not really very common. And I've stressed the shit out of yeast. I have not had autolysis flavors once with beer yeast. Let me make that clear. Beer yeast, I have not had that flavor. Champagne yeast, yes, I have had autolysis flavor with champagne yeast, but that's because it was like an 8% corn fermentation with champagne yeast, and it just went crazy so fast, and then it just tasted gross. You know, I mean, it tastes like yeast nutrient. If you ever dip your finger into yeast nutrient and taste it, that's like dead yeast cells. That's what autolysis tastes like. It's not
Is there a
appealing.
way to slow it down?
Temperature.
Does racking soon after fermentation is complete help with that, or?
Yes. So that and also chilling it is one of the most, the most crucial things you can do if you're worried. Like if you ferment too high, too hot, too fast, most of the time you'll have different alcohols that get produced as well as autolysis. So the autolysis is more yeast related in terms of, it's starting to consume itself, versus the alcohol, which is more of like the availability of its food cause a quick reaction. Anyway, I'm getting away from the point here. Yes, you can help prevent it if you do rack off earlier, but in terms of the Kveik yeast, I wouldn't recommend it, mainly because Kveik yeast takes so freaking long to clean up after itself and flocculate. This is the one thing about Kveik yeast that I didn't realize until I got it, but it works so well for hazy IPAs because it refuses to drop out. Like it in the keg, so most of the time you can turn a beer around within a week. Not even kidding you. You'll have fermentation completely done within 3 days if you're fermenting above 70 degrees. Not even kidding you about that. 3 days fermentation's done. And I mean, I was shocked. I was like testing the gravity every single day for like 5 days afterwards, and it was dead flat. I was just amazed. It didn't get any clearer over those 5 days that I was measuring. Stick it in the fridge, cold crash it, try to drop out the yeast. It still was so hazy. It wasn't until a month later in the fridge that it was like actually clear. And I didn't use any clarifying agents. If you use a clarifying agents, it'll drop clear pretty quick, but just like most normal people do, and they just let their beer sit in the fridge. Oh man, a month. So it's great for hazy IPAs. Has anyone used Kolsch yeast for brewing a Kolsch? No. Bueller? No. So Kolsch yeast is kind of the same, where if you brew with a Kolsch yeast, like a true Kolsch yeast, it takes a long time for the yeast to drop out. It takes quite a while for it to happen naturally. If you use gelatin or some of the other clarifying agents, it'll happen quicker, like within a week, refrigerated. But I'm not sure what it is about the Kveik yeast that, keeps it in suspension, but it's phenomenal for hazies. But for those beers that you want clear, forget it, man. Forget it. You have to use a clarifying agent if you want it clear, or you just have to have it sit in the fridge for a month. Yeah, so that's been my experience with Kveik yeast. Pretty much, it's been around for a while. It used to be, so hothead yeast is one of the ones that people have been using for the last, I want to say 8 years or so. I learned about it in Chico when I was living there, because it'll be 100 degrees in your garage, and no beer yeast is going to handle that very well. And when the hothead yeast came out, people were stoked in Chico because they didn't have to worry about it anymore. So hothead is kind of like one of the first commercial Norwegian yeasts that actually did what we were hoping, where it actually ferments clean. And I got a taste of that early on when I was in Chico, and I loved it. Yeah. So other than that, any questions about Kveik yeast? I could go into a deeper dive, but you guys know how to use Google. If you want to read about it, you can. I'm not going to take up your airspace.
Well, thanks, Chris.
I'll just toss out. I was totally caught off guard when I looked up details about it. I found an interesting article in Growler Mag, which I had never heard of Growler Mag before, but they pointed out that some of the strains can ferment as high as 98 degrees without off flavors.
Yeah.
Which totally blew my mind. I never heard. And they point out that a 5% beer can ferment in as little as 48 hours. You know, if you're fermenting at 90 degrees.
Regarding the off flavors and high temperatures, has anyone tried brewing under pressure? I've heard that that can help in high temperature situations as well.
Nope, never tried it myself.
That dog has tried it?
Sal doesn't think much about it at all.
Oh man.
I've heard
imagination,
interesting information about brewing under pressure and how that can be a good solution for avoiding off flavors resulting from fast fermentations and or higher temperature fermentations. So if you've got a fermentation vessel that can handle pressure, apparently it's an interesting experiment to try. So.
I brewed under pressure once until the lid of the bucket blew off and spewed foam everywhere. It was fantastic.
Was that intentional? I mean, a bucket generally wouldn't be pressure rated.
Exactly, which is why I've actually can never say that I've fermented under pressure, mainly because I haven't had a vessel that can handle fermentation pressures. I know a lot of folks turn like corny kegs or Sankey kegs into fermenters. There's a couple of really easy ways to do that, and those types of vessels are built to handle pressure to a certain point. There's a lot of really cool conical fermenters that are coming out right now, both in plastic and stainless steel that can handle pressure. There's like the Firmzilla, a lot of the stainless, like the SS Brewtech and Blickman's have a clamp that'll hold the lid down. And there you can ferment under pressure in those to a certain point as well. So, you know, I think it's a great opportunity to kind of experiment. And, you know, I think I've got a spare corny, so I might try to do a spunding valve at some point and ferment in a corny keg.
Yeah, I've actually got a spike conical that's rated to 15 psi, but that's the one thing I don't have is the spunding valve, which you definitely want if you're going to brew under pressure. So
nice. Yeah, I haven't had the desire to ferment under pressure yet, but I'm curious. I'm really curious. What was I going to look at? Okay.
I try to never do anything under pressure.
Dun, 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 dun. I just want to mention one last thing about you know, under pitching Kveik yeast, because a lot of people want to, you know, save money, and yeast is one of those big areas where you can save money on your homebrew. Kenny, cover your ears. I'm sorry, but you know, reusing yeast. Sean brought up the question a few months ago on our Facebook page in terms of like, well, you know, I just kind of just pitch my beer on top of my yeast cake of the last beer. That is massively over pitching, and I'm surprised that he has not had autolysis, you know, flavors in his beer, or maybe he just doesn't recognize them. But for the Kveik yeast, I'm talking like the last time that I used the yeast, which is the last time I brewed, I used a 1/4 cup of slurry from a previous batch into 5 gallons. Like Yeah, a quarter cup, which is like not a lot at all. And I've been slowly doing less and less and less, because previously, like for a typical beer, I'll go to Mad River, pick up a quart jar of their yeast slurry, which is usually, usually it's like 3 to 4 inches of yeast, which is about a cup and a half of yeast slurry. And I'm using that for 10 gallons. I'm talking like a quarter cup of slurry for 5 to 10 gallons for the Kveik.
So we generally only use like wild harvested and or reused yeast. A quarter cup is like, that's like 10 batches right there. That's so you're massively overpitching if you're using that much slurry.
Well, no, but it's just slurry. Are you guys
slurry though too? You actually probably want to put that slurry through a wash.
Those are not exclusive. Yeah. So, I mean, I agree. Like the amount of yeast you actually need for it to work is a lot different than the amount of slurry you need. A lot of the slurry is not necessarily yeast.
Yeah.
And most of the beers I'm brewing, have quite a bit of hop content in it, or, a lot of oats. Almost all of my beers have like 2 pounds of oats in it, because I just love the mouthfeel, and I feel like it really does benefit it. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I do not like washing yeast.
Yeah,
I
don't like more
say
steps.
That when we were out at Mad River the other day, and they had suspended their yeast program, but in theory it should be back up and running. So it's a great program. It's like $2 per jar. You buy in once, and then as long as you return your jar, they'll give you another yeast pitch for free. At least that's how it was with the previous ownership. I'm not sure if they're changing that program with the new ownership, but they said that they're continuing it.
Nice.
Chris, you mentioned it was recommended to underpitch with the Kveik. Do you know why that's recommended? Could maybe have to do with, if it's not settling quickly, if you're underpitching, you might end up with a more clear beer than.
So my experience with it was so after the first time I pitched it, it was an old package. The slurry that I pitched after that, which was a typical pitch rate, and that beer did not clear any quicker. It did, however, have less of the ester profile. So if you pitch a more normal amount, you do get a more normal flavor out of it, in my experience at least. So if you underpitch, you're going to get some of those more wild, like pineapple, tropical fruits.
Okay, that's good to know.
So the one beer that I did pitch a normal amount of yeast, it was slightly there, but it wasn't as much. It was more similar to stone fruit, like a peach kind of. But then the next beer, after I was reading more about it, it was like, oh yeah, underpitched the hell out of it. I severely underpitched it, and it was just wild pineapple. It was phenomenal.
So it really affects the flavor.
Yeah, it hugely affects the flavor. And both of those were around 70 degree. Those were around 70 degree fermentation temperatures. So after I learned about underpitching, then I kicked up the heat and started fermenting at like 85, 90. And that just unleashed it. It finished so much faster. The ester profile was still the same, where it was just super tropical. And I was shocked, and my wife was like, did you put like some crazy hops in this? And I was like, no, I did like 2 ounces of hops for the 10-gallon batch. Like it was so under hopped, and my wife was like, this is amazing. Like it's not bitter at all. It tastes like pineapple.
Wow. Nice.
So yeah, right now, in the heat of the summer, I highly recommend trying it. If anyone wants a little bit of my culture, it's the Kveiking, the Omega Kveiking. It's like 4 generations deep right now. And oh, that's the other cool thing about this yeast. It doesn't have to stay a liquid slurry. You can dry it into these little, I mean, it looks like weird mud, and it's dry, and you put a few flakes in your beer, you toss a few flakes in, and that's it. I mean, you can do like 1 to 2 grams, or sorry, 4 to 5 grams of this dried yeast into a 5-gallon batch, and you're set. And it's like, it's so small. Like, instead of having to have a yeast slurry, like a quart of yeast slurry sitting in your fridge, you just have this little baggie of yeast. I just love this yeast. I don't know what to say about it.
Yeah, and I had mentioned that earlier, Chris, with the yeast ring, the traditional way where they would have this wooden ring.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can take your slurry and kind of dry it out on like parchment paper on a sheet pan. I've seen kind of tricks and techniques, and there's a really cool Facebook group. I think it's called Brewing with Kveik. I think it may be ran by that fellow Lars. But there's a lot of really cool information coming out about these different strains of this Kveik yeast, and you know, it's great, especially for the summertime, like you said, where it's warm and you don't really want to worry about temperature control. You know, and it seems to have a lot of different variations, so it'd be interesting to try a few of them.
Yeah, it's super fun in my opinion. There is something else that is kind of above most people's, you know, wanting to know about, but like brewing pH for Kveik yeast is completely different. I monitor a lot of my pH during brewing because I have a pH monitor. So brewing with Kveik, the terminal pH is way lower. I don't know if any of you guys care about that, but like most pH of a finished beer is like 4.5 to 4.75. For lagers, it's a bit lower, but for Kveik yeast, it's like 4.25. It's a lot lower. So I am not sure exactly why it's doing that. I could probably look it up, but if that's one metric that you use, I don't know many people who do, but the terminal pH of your beer is going to be lower. So it's going to be, yeah. So I just wanted to, you know, throw
from
that
a cider maker's perspective, you're talking about really high pHs. We generally brew at in the 3.5 and lower range.
For terminal?
For starting and ending. Actually, with cider, the pH doesn't change much from beginning to end. But we're also starting with about a 3.5 to 3.3 to 3.5 is an ideal starting pH for cider. So Kveik might be actually really, really good for cider.
Yeah. I mean, shoot, might as well give it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that if anyone's interested. Yeah, so that's Kveik yeast. That's pretty much it for the Science Quick Dip. I'll try to make it more focused for next month. I might do hops. I might just throw it out to a poll on Facebook just because I'm trying to get engagement on our Facebook page. So please, 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 if you're ever farting around on Facebook, check the group, comment or like, or, you know, just post a picture of a beer that you made or your homebrew equipment sitting lonely in the corner being like, I'll get to you. You know, I just want to drum up a little bit of conversation on our Facebook page, since that's largely where a lot of people go. Also, we've had like 10 new members. I mean, not members, sorry. 10 new people join our Facebook group. I have turned off the approval for new members. So it's just kind of auto approving people who want to join the Facebook group, as long as they answer 2 of the questions, which is, are you involved in the industry? You know, and are you wanting to brew beer? You know, super simple questions, but it keeps out a lot of the bots and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that if you guys have any free moments when you're farting around Facebook, just engage a little. Maybe throw a comment or a like.
I want to brew beer.
What's that?
I want to brew beer.
I know, right? I want to brew beer. I'm hoping to brew beer this weekend. Yeah. What are you brewing, Pete?
I call it my summer magic, ginger rosemary ale,
Ooh.
which
Yeah,
is why I
nice.
did a test batch of the cider, ginger rosemary cider.
Nice. Heck yeah. I'll be brewing a wheat and a white IPA. One thing I've been doing a lot is I typically brew a 10-gallon batch, but I've been splitting it. So I'll start chilling, run off half of the beer into a fermenter and throw that and call it whatever it is. And then the other half I'll hop at a hop stand or, at a whirlpool. So it's lower temperatures, like 150 rather than boiling. So I'll have like a hoppier version of a beer than the initial one that I pulled off. It's just been doing double duty because my wife doesn't really like super hoppy beers, and I love hoppy beers. So it's been fun because I've also been, experimenting with yeast. So this round I'll be doing a wheat beer as well as a white IPA. Anyone else brewing soon or plan to brew?
I have a question, actually. So I did a hazy back at the beginning of the quarantine, and I was kind of experimenting with the different hop additions, and I was doing it like pre-boil. What is it called when you do
First wort hops?
First wort hops. So I did first wort hops, but then I also did like whirlpool, but my whirlpool was dumping it in while I was cooling it.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's how my
I
whirlpool
just didn't know,
works.
like, nothing really happened bad with them. It actually came out really good, but I didn't know if there's any possibility of like things that could go wrong at the end. No.
Not really. Oh no, it's hops. I mean, the higher the temperature, the more likely you are to extract the bitterness. The perceived bitterness, at least. When you're brewing an IPA, the hops that you throw in at first wort hopping or at 60, largely affects the bitterness measurement. So the hotter it is, the more bitterness you'll extract. There's a huge science in terms of the oil volatility of specific hops and specific oils of those hops. I would really like to cover this at the next meeting for our Science Quick Tip. But basically, the higher the temperature, the more a lot of the oils are volatile, so they'll just boil off, even at like 180 degrees. So if you turn your flame off, boil at 220, most water boils at 220 degrees. It is measured that you lose.
Chris, correction.
What?
212 degrees.
Thank you. 212.
Below sea level.
Yeah. So anyway, hot. You're going to lose a lot of the aromatic hop oils at that high temperature, which is why people have been wanting to do these whirlpools or hop stands where it's under 180 degrees. 180 is usually one of the like key temperatures that a lot of people will try to drop down to before they add their aromatic hops.
It was noticeably like, it was like the best IPA I ever made. All my other IPAs had sucked before that one. And although I did get a lot of the schmeg, the sediment, the hop sediment that I didn't filter out. But
yeah, honestly, I just got a hop spider like a month ago. I mean, basically it's instead of, like using hop bags in your beer, I finally bought a wire mesh, so that I stop having to, fish the bags out, throw more hops in and toss it in. But it's super helpful and they're pretty inexpensive. They're under $50. I'm sure our local homebrew shop has.
Yeah, there's a local homebrew shop.
He's busy right now. He's washing his hands.
Doing the dishes.
I'm pretty sure he's got a hop spider.
So we're brewing a strawberry cider right now. We're actually going to be kegging and bottling it this weekend. So it's 12.5 gallons. We'll probably be kegging about 8 gallons and bottling the rest. So.
Wow. Okay. So I'm so curious, how many pounds of strawberries will go into a cider for it to like impart flavor?
For a really good, strong strawberry flavor, we use about 2 pounds of strawberries per gallon.
No.
No?
No, it's like
I'll have to grab our notes.
That sounds about right.
no, it's not actually with other things like peach, that's right. But strawberries actually impart a stronger flavor. So it's more
yeah.
like a pound per gallon.
Oh, yeah, actually, I'm sorry. For this batch, we used 15 pounds of strawberries
Yeah.
on a 12.5 gallons final amount. So
Nice.
it's a little over. For peaches, for example, we use about 2 pounds per gallon. But strawberries have a stronger flavor, so we're able to use less. So yeah, a little over a pound per gallon.
Neat.
Yeah, and that gives it a nice red color and a nice strong strawberry nose and flavor.
Nice. Well, damn, I might need to add strawberries to my next wheat beer. Strawberry wheat. That sounds familiar.
Make sure you don't add it when it's too hot. You wanna add strawberries at cooler temperatures. Otherwise, you end up with a cooked fruit flavor. And definitely, you don't want that cooked fruit. You want more of a fresh fruit flavor.
Yeah. So do you guys do it when it's hot at all, or do you only put it in during fermentation?
We add strawberry. For us, we're using cider. It doesn't it's not hot at any point during our.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So for us, yeah, we're adding our strawberries when it's at room temperature. We actually use blended fruit, which does involve 2 additional rackings in any particular fermentation, since essentially we almost have a smoothie to start with.
Oh my
And
God.
so then we have a first racking, which is really getting off a lot of that fruit sediment. But I think that imparts a lot of that fruit flavor by having it ferment on the whole fruit for that first week and a half or so. Then we rack off of that, and then we do another racking and another racking before we actually get to the ending point. But yeah, it's all done at anything that involves like that whole fruit is done at temperatures of below 80 degrees Fahrenheit.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. Strawberries, they're in season. They're everywhere. Like, might as well toss those in.
Yeah, and you can add them at higher temperatures, but you'll end up with a little bit more of a cooked fruit flavor, and you'll lose some of those aromatics. So
yeah, so similar to hops, Ben.
Yep.
Keep it low. Cool. Anyone else brewing anytime soon? No. If it suits their fancy.
Maybe.
I know Caitlin's done some really cool things with the sous vide machine and fruit additions. Maybe she might be able to tell you something. Sorry to throw you on the spot.
I puree my fruit and then bag it up and put it in the sous vide at a temperature to pasteurize it for like 45 minutes or so. I'd have to look it up to find out what I did, but just a low enough temperature to pasteurize it so I don't wind up infecting my beer and then don't wind up cooking my fruit either.
Nice.
Yeah.
with cider, to avoid infection, we use a little bit of sulfites when we do add those additional fruits, since we're not heating it up to pasteurization temperatures. But also since we're doing ciders, which are at a lower pH, that also keeps us safer. So definitely different considerations with ciders as there are with beers.
Ben,
I have a question.
hold on, Anna, just one sec. Ben, you were in the middle of saying something?
Oh, sorry. I was just wondering if when you say sous vide, can you use like an Instapot to do that kind of pressurized?
I don't know. I know some Instapots offer a sous vide option, but I don't own an Instapot, so I have no idea how that works. My dad has one, but has not unboxed it despite having owned it for a few years now. So I can't get any details on that. I have just a little dual thing that works for sous vide, and you use your phone to set whatever temperature, and it keeps it within a few hundredths of a degree from where you set it, and for hours at a time. So
Cool.
works nice.
Go ahead, Anna. Sorry.
So I've been curious about the sparkling water that is like 5% alcohol. Like,
Oh boy, I would love to talk about that because I've been brewing it.
The seasonal from Eel River, the watermelon, is so good.
How
And
much was that? They didn't have a price on it when I saw it at the co-op yesterday.
oh, it's like $2. I don't know. I got it at Eureka Natural Food, so it was $2.99. But if you get it from the brewery, my friend got a 24 pack for
Damn.
$60, I think. And so I want to brew one, but how should I treat it like as a soda? Or...
No. So someone asked me, why are you drinking out of a straw earlier? I was drinking my Alky seltzer, as I call it. My wife kind of, set me on this path. She's like, I love some of these Clarity, the Eel River Clarity. She loves it, but it's expensive for what it is.
Yeah.
And if you read online, everyone's like, well, if you're really into home brewing, you either make it yourself, or if you just want that, 5% alcohol with whatever flavor you want and you want it carbonated, just throw vodka in it. So there's kind of two camps right now. I mean, because in a 5-gallon keg, if you throw like a fifth of vodka with water, it equates to about like 5%. So there's that camp. I wanted to be the strong-headed person that I am and try to brew some. So I think it was like the last time we met in person, I had finished a batch, which turned out pretty damn good. So between those two camps, you either, just dose water with vodka to make it alcoholic, which is a lot easier than, brewing it. Because when you're brewing it, a lot of people start with a corn sugar, just because it's easy to dissolve.
Mm-hmm.
They'll use corn sugar. I used I could open Beersmith really quick. Beersmith 2. I'm pretty sure it was 5 pounds of the corn sugar for a 5-gallon batch, and it turned out to be about 6.8% alcohol. So that's the easiest way to do it, is use corn, but then the yeast is what, does the work for you. Previously, I've used beer yeast. I also use champagne yeast. I tried white wine yeast. And I also tried the turbo yeast. I would not recommend the turbo yeast. Let me just tell you, don't use the turbo yeast, in my opinion. The champagne yeast turned out kind of like champagne. So when you're drinking champagne, you can kind of taste the yeast in it. It's got that slightly musty flavor to it. So if you can get past that flavor, then I'd say use champagne yeast. White wine yeast is my second favorite. My first favorite is honestly beer yeast. The beer yeast ripped through a corn fermentation. Another batch that I did, I split it, corn sugar and the lightest powdered malt extract I could find, and then just dissolved it, used beer yeast, and it turned out great. That was the one that I preferred, actually. But I had to over pitch, and I also had to use a ton of yeast nutrients, because there's not a whole lot of nutrient in that corn sugar. So that being said,
what was your pH for brew? Did you check your pH or?
Yeah. So with this type of fermentation, I wanted it to start low, like 3.6 is what I wanted it to be. Yeah. I haven't tried a cider yeast, which might actually work out. I haven't tried that.
Yeah, I mean, starting for cider is 3.3 to 3.5, so they like the more acidic.
Yeah, it might be worth a shot for me to try that, actually. I don't have a cider yeast on hand. I haven't had one since last apple harvest, to be honest, so it's been a while. But unfortunately, it's more work than it's worth, in my opinion. As a home brewer, it's easier to just throw a fifth of vodka in with water and flavor it. After brewing like 4 batches of it, I'm ready to just toss in the towel and be like, screw this. It's cheaper to just put vodka in it, in terms of the time and the dedication to it. Unfortunately.
No.
But I do have to say,
It's still a fun experiment.
It's still fun. Yeah, it was an experiment for me. And my wife was like, can you brew White Claw? Can you brew Clarity? Like, give it a shot. And I gave it my best shot, but it really wasn't worth my time. And I had to like add a bunch of yeast nutrients to it, like staggered them. I read up online in terms of like how to do it. And I also put in like tannins. I also had to pre-acidify it so that the yeast would do its thing. It was a lot of work, and in my opinion, it wasn't worth it. You know.
Has anybody done a batch where they did just use the vodka as the alcohol?
Yeah. Oh, I totally did.
Have you ever made a vodka tonic?
Yeah. I mean, it's worth it. What's up, Pete? A vodka tonic.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, and I recently started keeping a tap of just bubbly water on because I was going through so much freaking carbonated water. And I talked to Sean about it. I was like, Sean, what's your secret for carbonated water? He's like, fucking throw water in there and crank it up. But I ended up buying like 10 or 20, I want to say it's like 20 feet of line just so it doesn't come rocketing out the end of the Cobra tap. It was insane. I had like a 6-foot line and it was just overflowing the pint glass as soon as I started pouring it.
So when you're talking about brewing hard seltzers, there's a couple of things to kind of think about. Like at bare minimum, start out with filtered water and preferably reverse osmosis or distilled water.
I never did any of that, and it tastes fine.
Well, you know, everybody's got their own way of doing things, and you know, the minerals in normal tap water can produce weird off flavors. In the research that I've done, you know, I have not tried a seltzer myself yet. But yeah, there's aspects of the water that you need to think about, and as Chris mentioned, there is the deficiencies in the nutrients. So nutrient additions are highly recommended. As far as clarity goes, the tap water, normal city tap water, could lead to clarity issues, but also, you know, it's gonna take a while for everything to settle out in the seltzers, to my understanding. I may be incorrect on that, but using clarifiers really helps, or cold crashing would really help too. Chris, how did you get yours so clear? I know you posted a picture on the Facebook.
So I don't cold crash in my fermentation vessel typically, just because fitting a freaking keg or a carboy into a fridge is usually a pain in the ass. So I don't really deal with that. Most of the time I rack off and then I cold crash in the keg, and then I pour my first pint or two after it's sat for like 3 or 4 days. I used, hey Ben, what is Ben in here still? Yeah. I don't recall what it was. It's like a clay. You were like, oh, they use that for you know, fracking or something.
Bentonite.
Bentonite, yeah. So there's this clay called bentonite. You can pick it up at your local homebrew store. Bentonite, I never used it. It's widely used in wine, but I use the bentonite. It's the weirdest thing. It's like this thick clay slurry. Imagine putting kitty litter in water and then trying to stir it with a spoon. That was my experience with it. It's so bizarre, but I use this bentonite, tossed it in after before I racked off, and it did a hell of a job. It clarified really quick. I think it was within 2 days, 3 days. I didn't want to use gelatin in it because I have a few friends who I was trying to brew it for who are vegan. So it's like, okay, let's not throw gelatin in it just to appease those vegan appetites. And yeah, the bentonite turned out great. It was crystal clear. I think you saw it on Instagram or something like that, on Facebook, I think. you could read through this, and I mean, that was within 2 weeks of it being terminal, you know, and most of the time things don't last in a keg longer for me than 3 weeks. A month is like unheard of.
So yeah, bentonite is a great option, especially if you want to keep things vegan. It's an excellent alternative to either gelatin or isinglass. So yeah, it keeps things vegan and can also be organic. I was also going to say the touched base earlier about pH meters, which I'm not sure if our local brew store carries them, but if they do, that's definitely the first place to check. But a pH meter is a great, cheap addition to your brew kit if you don't already have one.
Yeah. And also by the calibrating chemicals right off the bat. Like, if the cheaper ones, you're going to have to calibrate more frequently than the more expensive ones. That's my experience. I bought a cheap pH meter and I hucked that thing out the door. I hucked it to another home brewer after I had to calibrate it every single time I used it. I was so fed up with it.
So what's the price difference between cheap and cheap?
I think the cheap pH meters, I think they're like $40 on Amazon.
So
Yeah, well,
I actually picked up a pretty cheap $40 one, and I actually haven't had to recalibrate it. I do check it against our base water pH and a couple other things every time I use it, and it hasn't really. I only had to recalibrate it once so far, and I've had it for a year and a half at this point. And that was a cheap $40 one.
Yeah, so I didn't buy a $40 one the first time. I bought one of the like 20, like I think this is the one I got, the $20 one. So it was not worth it. Yeah, it was not worth it for the headache that it was worth for the cheap one. I spent $100 on a Milwaukee one because, I mean, I use this thing like 4 times a brew just to make sure that things are going the way I want them to be. Yeah, so
yeah, there's a couple of different options when you're talking about pH testing. You know, the digital ones, they're awesome because they're reusable, very low waste. The main issue is you have to have the buffering liquids to calibrate it every once in a while. Depending on what type of quality you get, you may have to do that more often. Other options would be like the pH test strips, that like kind of like litmus paper on a plastic swab. They are disposable, which is kind of, you know, be nice if they were reusable. But it'll give you a pretty quick reading, and I know that they're available in both the beer range and the wine range as well. So higher and lower pHs, at least up to about, you know, 6.5 or something like that, I think.
nice. Yeah, I highly recommend if you have exhausted all of your nerding out for brewing and you want to look for another avenue, pH is a great indicator. And as you talk to more commercial brewers or you know, they will admit that they do measure the pH, and that's one of the main indicators of, you know, yeast health. If they're reusing their yeast over and over again, their terminal pH will usually start to increase as their generation of yeast starts to, you know, vary from its original thing. But anyway,
and if you're a cider maker, that keeping things acidic and a lower pH is even more important. So yeah, definitely all y'all cider makers, even more important to have that pH and keeping it low.
Yeah, and for people who want to dive into sour beers and blending, you know, if you don't really trust your palate for like, oh, is this acidic enough? Highly recommend a pH meter. And also for managing yeast. I know Mike and Beth do a lot of that. Yeast health for pH, I mean pH for yeast health, and, you know, preventing wild microbes from infecting your beer is really crucial.
So I can tell you from experience real quick that the health department says about 3.6 and below will inhibit microbial growth. So that's, if you go to a restaurant or any food service place, they're held to that strict. It's got to be 3.6 or below. So kind of run by that rule, 3.6, 3.5. I know certain ciders can go down to about 3.2. Kombucha can even go down to 2.5. It's usually in the 2.5 to 3.5 range. But yeah, check your pH, and you know, there's several different ways to do it. Whatever works for you is the best. And if you're trying to wild ferment a cider, don't even attempt it if your pH isn't below 3.5. Like, we're coming up to cider season. Don't even try wild fermenting if your pH isn't below 3.5.
What do you know what pH apple cider typically is? Just fresh press.
3.3 to 3.5 is an ideal starting range.
No, I mean, do you know what it normally is?
I mean, depending on the apple variety, you'll find a huge wide range. Most of the apples we press are in the 3, you know, in that range, but we have found some apples that are less acidic are in the 3.8, some even as high as 4. And so for those, you generally you'll either need to add some malic acid or something to bring that pH down. Otherwise, you'll want to pasteurize and, you know, and pitch. But if you're trying to wild ferment, it's important for the natural pH to be 3.5 or below.
Nice. So I misspoke earlier when I said the pH I was shooting for was like 3.6. I was shooting for 4.9 in my seltzer for a good start for the white wine yeast, at least. I ended up shooting low and getting 4.2. But one thing I found for making seltzers in general is they taste better and more crisp when you acidify afterwards. So after it was done fermenting, I actually ended up throwing a bunch of citric acid in because it tasted way better. And same goes for cider, you know, the acidity is everything. So crispness, yeah.
Also, that lower pH that we naturally use for cider making helps us with the additions of other fruit. So if you're trying to add other fruit to other kinds of fermentations like beers, that pH factor can become a huge deal. It's one of the reasons low pH of cider making is one of the reasons we can add fruit and keep the temperature low. If you're trying to add fruit to beer, I don't know if you can do low temperature fruit and beer, if that'll work as well. So
I'm sure Chrissy can talk about that. I've had mixed. I mean, it's kind of like chancing it when you throw in fruit, even if it is frozen. You know, if you buy it packaged from a store, frozen fruit, and you just toss it in, you're kind of chancing it, not getting
frozen does not kill microbes.
No, it does not. Yeah. So anyway, all right, guys, we're coming up on the end of time. Homebrewer highlights. I would really, really, really appreciate it if there's any question that you think would be valuable to help you understand what a homebrewer, you know, what makes one of your fellow homebrewers tick. Please comment on the Facebook post that I have up. I think that Michael's question of what's the worst beer you brewed, you know, that's a pretty good question because sometimes people learn from the worst beer that they made or worst cider, you know. I would really like to have these homebrewer highlights to bring more of a human face to our homebrewers, to our homebrew club, so that people who are browsing the website, people who are browsing the group page, don't just see, you know, still pictures. They see a rich media content like a video that's edited or an interview. So what I'm hoping to do is get like 5 to 10 questions that we can ask our local homebrewers. All of you, like, what do you like to drink when you're homebrewing? Do you drink when you're homebrewing? You know, similar questions like that. I will be finishing that homebrewer highlight and putting a highlight reel of one homebrewer that I'm going to be interviewing. I don't know who it'll be yet, but I will have that ready by next meeting. Which brings me to future meetings. August 6th is our next meeting. We need to be sending out an email within the next 2 weeks regarding our meeting date and time and the link to the Zoom meeting. We will also send out another email within the week of the meeting just to, perk people back up. Oh yeah, there's a meeting coming. My ass has been dragging the last 2-3 months. I apologize. Kind of throwing everything together as we can get it together. So yeah, August 6th is the next meeting. Our membership year will start August. Don't forget. So I will be reminding people in that email in 2 weeks to please log in to go to the Ink People website to join or renew in that email to renew your membership so that we can have voting in September because that's what's going on in September. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Anything else? I'd love to see you guys. Thanks for giving me my platform to talk to people because I really have not been talking to jack shit anyone over the last 3 months, other than my family and my 2 coworkers. So it's good to see you all.
Thanks, Chris.
Oh yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah. Cheers.
Good ending.
The advice.
This is super sacrilegious because I don't have any beer in my cup right now. Now that I drink this beer, I have no beer left in my house right now. Other than competition beers from 5 years ago.
Time to bust them out.
I went through my competition beers. I had a 6-pack and I went through them. I don't know what they were, but yeah.
We should do a beer co-op.
A beer what?
Co-op.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Go look at the baby.
Yeah, this is my son.
What's up, River?
No one's seen him. Here, let me unplug my headphones really quick.
Oh.
Hey, up right now, bud. You want to say hi to everyone?
What's up, dude?
What are you eating? You're eating a pea? Cool. Oh, do you see that? What's that? Yeah, it's a kitty cat.
This is what I do when I call my nephew on the phone. He
Yeah.
doesn't want to talk to me, but if I bring the cat in the picture.
Oh my God. Yeah, this guy has been consuming 90% of my free time, other than, trying to get our house ready to sell.
Aw.
Woo!
She's like,
That's my life. Another thing I've been meaning to ask you guys, would anyone be interested in doing a happy hour meet, where it's an hour on a weekday or a weekend?
Sugar kitty.
Digitally?
You mean the first Thursday of every month at around 7?
No, different than that. Way more informal with no intention of doing business.
Yeah, send out an invite.
Log in and drink and talk beer, or log in.
Yeah, no, just drink a beer and chat, have social hour, because I feel like a lot of people are missing out on social time.
Yeah.
I would definitely do
Maybe
that.
Wednesday, but yeah.
Yes.
Oh, people would be interested in that? Yeah?
definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, just I'm busy every first Thursday of the month. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah. Just schedule it sometime else, and I'd love to join.
I mean, around
Okay.
lunchtime works good for me usually most weekdays.
Lunchtime? What? Matt's drinking a lunch beer.
I'm kidding.
Breakfast is better for me.
Lunchtime.
Breakfast.
Okay, just out of curiosity, do people want it on a weekday or a weekend?
Definitely a weekday.
Yeah, evening, weekday.
Yeah, evening,
Yeah,
weekday.
weekday for me.
Okay.
You can't tell I'm raising my hand for both.
Yeah, Kenny, what day of the week works better for you?
I mean, you guys know where I work and what my hours are, but my days off generally are Monday, Tuesday. I'm willing to if you guys set something up, I'm more than happy to try to join in. So
Cool.
yeah, man, just make it for whenever, and I'll try to be there.
Mondays.
Everybody gets Mondays.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Mondays, is that what we'll call it?
I vote for Monday.
Sweet. Yeah, I hope for Monday too. So that might be it. So like I said before, we've got a club Zoom account now. Officers, it's literally the same login as our Gmail account. So if you go to Zoom and go to login as Gmail, like have at it, like create meetings, hang out with your friends, whatever, you know, it's not going to get used much. What do you see, Riv?
Oh.
Yeah, it's thinking. Everyone's thinking. Yeah. How do you think? You think and you think and you think with your brain. Where's your brain? Yep. Cool. So I will mention that in the officer page just so everyone knows. Yeah, I'd love to have a happy hour, you know, just to hang out and chat with people, not do anything business wise. Cool.
Cool.
Love you guys. It's great to see you. Sorry we can't be there in person.
Thank you guys for putting this together. I know everything's wacky and everybody's trying to get used to this new way of doing things, but you know, we need to keep the group engaged, and you know, I go crazy too. So you know,
although it was funny, Kenny, as soon as you posted that thing on Facebook, we had already been, you know, talking about it, and I was already talking with Beth to send out the email, and we're like, freaking Kenny again, like reading our mind, looking in the draft emails or something. It's just funny.
much to learn, young Padawan.
Yeah, actually, just to throw it out there, Kenny,
Oh, we lost
The
you.
heck?
She's self.
Wow.
No.
Was that intentional?
It was a cat.
There we go.
that's all mine.
That was me messing with weird things.
But yeah, so don't hit me on Sunday. It's irritating. Hit me on Monday. Because that's when I send them out. So when you hit me on Sunday, I'm not doing shit for anybody on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rona.
All right, Rich. All right, guys. Well, I got to get going. This little man has to hit the hay. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
Yeah. Later, y'all.
Hi.
See
Have a
ya.
good night.
Sure.
Oh, there's a chat.
Aww.
Pete's got to go. Didn't even see that. All right, bye.
Bye.